All right, so we're back in the shop with the 62, and I think it's been a week or something since I've done a video on it. I believe where I left off is we were going to get the wiring harness for the truck that afternoon. We went and got the wiring harness and got it on and started putting everything together. Trying to finalize everything. This is a Sunday before Daytona. Everything's ready to go. We got it running. This engine does have a little bit of blow by on it. I'm not sure. I didn't know any of the history on this engine. My buddy had gotten it, and when I was looking at it, it looked like the cam bearings had been replaced, and then I think it has actually had a set of pistons put in it, so I was a little concerned about that when I saw that, but I put it together anyway. So it does smoke a little bit out of the catch can, and I'm hoping that'll fix itself, but we know it won't. So I guess if that's the case, probably what I'm going to do is start building me another engine and then put this top end and everything on it. So these are the Liberty heads that Michael got me. This one has the JFR camshaft in it. And then this is a billet S480 turbo with a 96 exhaust wheel and a 110 T6 exhaust housing. Has a 4-inch exhaust down to a Hooker max flow on it, and it's pretty quiet actually. We got a single fan on here. I don't know if that's going to be enough CFM. We got a methanol tank mounted that we got from Michael. So we got it plumbed, and in the intake tube, I don't know if I showed, we got the intake tube on. I got it all TIG welded and had to cut the neck off of the intercooler down there and put that, I forget what kind of connection they call that, but that's the new latest and greatest connection they have for intercooler piping. It works very well. It allows for some misalignment and some adjustment. It is very close to the water pump there, but hopefully I'll just trim the water pump and then we'll be good to go there. We got our steering hooked up, the shifter hooked up. So the methanol injection, it has a level sensor in it. So we have that going to the Holly as an input, and then we have the output coming to turn on the pump, and then we have obviously the output for the fan. Let's see what else. So we got our little overflow tank. Why they sent an orange hose, I don't know. I mean, that sticks out pretty bad, but whatever. So again, I don't really remember where we left off, but when I got it running, the pressure transducers I had were some cheap eBay ones or something. So the oil pressure one actually worked. The fuel pressure one did not. So, Low Dollar Motorsports has a good selection of pressure transducers, and they're $39 a piece or something like that. Whereas, the Holly one's like $300 a piece or something ridiculous like that, just because it's Holly. So I've been running Low Dollar Motorsports stuff for a while. They're a very economical solution. The Holly's way overpriced, same thing. I've had issues with them, and they have made them right immediately, no questions asked. I sent them the old one and got a brand new one, so very pleased with them. Let's see. The heater core, of course, the heater core leaked as soon as we got it all in. It started dumping out, so I had to get a new heater core. Got the new heater core in it. Cleaned up the map sensor. It had, for some reason, well, I guess, since it's universal LS3 harness or whatever, it had both style map sensors. With running this sensor, had to run the pigtail, so I didn't like having all that extra wire. So I cleaned that up, shortened it, cut that connection out, and soldered all that together. So it's an LY6 bottom end. The Liberty heads, Michael got the rocker arms for me. They already have some trunnion upgrade or something in them. They're a really nice rocker arm. Obviously the truck intake here, the L92 truck intake, and then we've got the Holley 120 high impedance injectors, and then the piece of junk 92 millimeter throttle body and motor plate, the QA1 full front suspension on it. We played around with the height and everything, and I'm really pleased with how well it sits. Got new tires on it. I was supposed to get it aligned, but they kind of fell through on me on that, so I don't know where we're at on the alignment. The tune, coincidentally, this engine combo and everything is very similar to one I've already done. Very similar. So it's the same camshaft, the same turbo. It was a 6.2, but this is a 6.0, so I mean, you know, the 0.2 is not going to matter. The 4L80, 3200 stall, 325 gear ratio, and then a 275/60, and I think these trucks are supposed to be around 3,500 pounds, so this is almost identical to my old LTD I used to have and run. So that car with that cam and turbo in it, at the weight and everything, with that gear and tire height and everything, ran 580s at 120. This has been quite a few years ago, maybe eight or 9 years ago, something like that. But it didn't, you know, I'm a little slow, so it didn't dawn on me until I was working on the tune. I was like, wait a minute, that other tune, you know, should be pretty spot on because it's pretty much identical to this setup. So I went through my file and changed everything, copied it over, and then it fired right up and ran pretty good. Michael is going to dyno it for me. We're going to get on the dyno whenever he's got time. I know he's busy with everything he's got going on. So unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards this year for us to make it down to Daytona with it. And then plus looking in the forecast, looks like we got some rain coming. So I don't know. I think it's a little too rushed. I don't want to push it and then, you know, it just be miserable. So you know, we've made great progress. We got it together. We certainly got a lot done. I'm very pleased with how much we've gotten done. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't pull it off, but all my stuff I got done. I got caught up and completed, and, you know, if I had the alignment on it, I'd be, you know, I would really be trying to make it down there with it. But with a whole new front suspension and no alignment, I just don't want to. That's just not a good combination. So and coincidentally, I think it was probably 7 years ago or something, I built another LTD. It was an 85 LTD with a complete Z28 2000 Camaro drivetrain in it. So it was a LS1 with a 4L60, 355 gear, and a 26-inch tire. And I got that car together the week of going to Daytona for the rod run, and took it somewhere to try to get alignment done on it, and then they jerked me around and ended up not getting alignment done on it, but I drove it down there anyway. Put over 1,000 miles on that car like the same week I got it running, and we're talking about from driving it from Middle Georgia to Lakeland, Florida, and then Lakeland, Florida over to Daytona for the rod run, and then all the way back home. And fortunately, I had zero issue with it, and it got about 22 miles a gallon, and it was a real nice, fun cruiser. I don't know where that car ended up, but that was a pretty fun car. It ran low 12s and got 22 miles a gallon. Had a stock camshaft. It just had a set of long tube headers on it, cobbled together, 3-inch single exhaust, and a set of wheels. I made the back wheels that were on it because nobody made one, so I made my own wheels for the back. And it was a pretty fun little car. But anyway, so some other issues we ran into was the turn signal switch. Apparently 60 to 62, they actually have a remote mount switch that's down in the bottom of the column, and there's actually a cable, like a bicycle cable, that somehow runs from the column, so it remotely pushes and pulls the mechanism on the switch to get the turn signals. And if the switch isn't perfectly aligned in the center, then you won't have one side of your brake lights or tail lights. So because the side that it doesn't allow power to is the one that flashes, because it only has a single flasher down there. So I don't know, just stuff, the way they did stuff in the 60s on these things is pretty crazy. But that's where the Holly is mounted. I think it turned out pretty good. The wiring harness was exactly the right length. I didn't have, that's as long as it is, so I didn't have too much, I didn't have too little. So I like it being right there under the seat. And then, got my USB cable come out from under the seat for my laptop. And then the wires just come through the tunnel and go out to everything. The fuel gauge, actually got the fuel gauge working on it. We got the holes drilled and got the bed actually mounted to the truck. I don't know if I showed how I did my fuel fill nut yet, but this is what I came up with for the fuel fill. So there's very little space between the bedside and the inner structure of the bed there. So I made this neck actually came with the tank, but it was a long straight piece. So I just pie cut it and then made because it had to be a real tight radius bend. So it goes down and squeaks beside the bed and then goes under and then into the tank underneath. So that turned out pretty good. We got our tag bracket mounted and everything, and even have our tag light. So we got that made and finished up. And then the other thing is there's only 3 wires that come back here for the taillights on these trucks. So one wire obviously is blinker, and then the other wire is taillights. So when I was reading the diagram, I was looking at it, and I was like, how are they getting away with only 3 wires? That just doesn't seem like it's enough wires for this thing. So, but what they do is the taillights are actually supposed to ground through the bed, but then you've got a wood floor in it, so wood isolates it from the metal. But there is this back strip right here actually does touch the frame and is tied to the bed. So I put some ground wires from the back of the tail light down to the chassis, and like I say, we got the tail lights working, the blinkers. The problem is with that cable, because it's so long, it flexes so hard that all of the forward and backwards movement of the cable is lost due to flexing. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I mean, most people these days don't use turn signals anyway. So brake lights was the biggest thing I was concerned about. So my buddy has some of the 63 to 66 steering columns. So I may end up having to get a steering column from him just to try to get the turn signals working, because it just seems like a very problematic design. So anyway, but when I got it all together, I went to crank it, and then wouldn't crank up. and I got to thinking about it, and the way it sounded like it wasn't getting fire. So I looked at the tune, and I had to do a custom ignition parameters because I have a 58X crank and then a 1X timing. So when I set my output, it was only to a 5-volt output, and it should be coil-on plug 12-volt. So I switched it to that. It cranked right up, and then it was popping and banging real bad. And then I got into thinking at one point I'd use these coil packs on something else and had them flip straight up and on the other side, so the wires were actually flipped around, so it was firing at the wrong time. So it was just, typical new stuff, getting together, trying to get it in the crank and everything. But other than that, it was pretty painless, fired right up and everything. Other than the heater core leaking and not having a fuel pressure transducer. Once I got that and got my fuel pressure set, then, I got it running pretty good. Well enough anyway. And let's see, I want to show you this switch real quick. So this is the turn signal switch for a 62, and what happens is the little wire goes in here, and then it pushes it down and then pulls it back, and you can see how difficult it is, even with just my finger. So having a long, teeny tiny cable that the diameter of the sleeve fits in there. So I mean, it's a very small diameter sleeve and cable that come through here to push and pull this thing. So like I say, just over that distance, the cable just flexes so hard that it won't move it to allow the blinker, and then if it does, it's going to get hung up and then not work. So anyway, just want to give an update on this thing, where we're at. Like I say, I got my part done. Again, if my buddy would have come through on the alignment for me, I would really be pushing and try to get this thing down to Daytona. But anyway, I know you want to hear it run, but I don't have time right now, so I'll do another video. The next video, I'll do it with it running. So that's that.